This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 105. And tonight I'm joined by Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
What's up?
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hi there.
Ash is on call this weekend and was up all night, so he cannot function. So we will miss him. Tonight, we are scheduled to record the Gone Home show for the AggroChat Game Club. Grace, this was your pick. You gonna talk a little bit about it?
Yes. So, this was my pick, and I guess before we get started, I do want to say that this is a pretty short game, and so, again, I want to really encourage if people are listening and they think they might want to play it, but they're not sure, it's pretty cheap and it's pretty short, so I would recommend that you go and play it before you listen to us spoil everything.
That's true.
Literally 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I looked at Steam and it was literally, I think, 94 minutes or something like that it took me to play.
Yeah, I've played through it a couple times, and it's averaged around an hour and a half, between an hour and a half and 2 hours. So, definitely worth your time. But anyway, and I do want to talk a little bit about why I chose this game, because I first played this game, I guess maybe a year or so now. I had some other friends who had played it and recommended it, and it absolutely hit me right smack in the feels. And when it came time for me to choose a game this month, I almost didn't pick it because I'll be completely honest, I really love this game, and was a little bit nervous talking about this game with people who were not a teenage girl in the mid-1990s, which is when this game takes place. But after some thought, I figured that I think it would be interesting to get other people's opinions on it who maybe this game didn't quite hit so completely on the nose. But anyway, in this game, and it's sort of a point and click exploration story game. You play a girl named Caitlin who was on vacation in Europe for, I guess, a few months, traveling in Europe after graduating from high school. And she came home a little bit early and got back to her family's house. And her family had moved while she was away. And came home and no one is there. And so this is a game of sort of coming home to an empty house that's your home, but not the home that you remember. And the people that you love are not there. And you're trying to explore this house and figure out what happened.
It's really, part of what I think is really interesting about it is the other wrinkle is that this is a house you've never been to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so the exploration makes sense because the character has never been there at all.
Yeah, you spend a semester abroad, and when you come back, your family has moved.
Yeah, so it's of course the sort of classic, a relative died and left this big creepy old mansion to your dad, and your family, for whatever reason, moved into it while you were away.
I would point out, I'm pretty sure you've actually spent a year abroad.
I think so. Because the journals cover a year or so.
Yeah, you see at some point that there's a calendar from 94, and or I think, no, there's your itinerary.
It's a travel log, yeah.
Your initial itinerary is June of 94.
And from the sounds of it, it's like the family moved in almost immediately after you went away.
Yes.
Yeah, not long after.
Although the house is still full of boxes and things that aren't quite put away.
Well, they didn't unpack your stuff.
They didn't unpack a lot of stuff.
And apparently they're remodeling the kitchen.
Oh my goodness.
That kitchen. I don't know why it was locked.
Yeah.
I was a little confused when I walked into the kitchen and I was like, wait a minute, how long have they been here? And this is all and then I found a little note about it, the contractors are being jerks or whatever.
The contractors were probably not being jerks. That was a note written from the dad's perspective.
True.
And Terrence Greenbrier is not a very charitable person. Boy, is this game chock full of so many good details.
Yeah. There's basically there's you, and then there's 3 characters that are your family members: your mother, your father, and your younger sister. And you learn things about each of the 3 of them, and and things that have happened over that year that you were gone. Primarily about your sister, but to a lesser extent, your mother and your father as well.
Yeah,
and it's interesting.
And I love the way that some of the little details are presented, because sometimes you click on something and there's a note to read, or there's a lot of voiceovers from your sister's journals. But sometimes even just the mouse over on an item has a little funny bit of information.
Yes.
Like when you go upstairs and you start looking through your parents' bedroom and you find a condom, and the little mouse over tooltip is like, "Ew, gross."
Yeah. Or when you find your dad's porn stash.
Yeah, I was going to say. The dad's porn stash underneath his failed novels.
It's the porn stash. It's, "Gosh, Dad." And then when you go upstairs, you find your sister's porn stash, and it's, "Gosh, Sam."
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Well, and it's the same magazine from the dad's porn stash, so...
It's the exact same magazine, but it's the same.
No, it's not the exact same.
No, it's a different it's a different issue, but it's
the
like
one that's missing.
Right, it's the one that's missing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the thing that I liked, that the game does such a good job at cementing you into 1995. The very first thing you hear in the game is your character leaving a... What were they
leaving
called?
A message on the answering
machine.
Yeah.
Yes. Leaving a message on an answering machine.
Yeah.
That is like, okay.
Yeah. And then very shortly after, you find said answering machine and get to hear 2 very frantic sounding messages, and then the message that you just heard yourself leaving.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I'll say, like, when you enter the game, like, one of the very first things that you see basically is a note from your sister.
Yeah.
And so that sort of sets the whole mystery kind of thing in motion. And the game is also super atmospheric. So I'll say, when the first time I played through it, and I didn't quite know what the game was or what it was about, or even fully what kind of game it was. And so you're in this creepy house, and it's dark, and it's stormy, and it's just like very, very creepy and atmospheric. And for a while playing the game the first time, I'm like, is something gonna jump out at me? Is this house haunted? Like, this is really creepy.
It's brilliantly crafted to look like a horror game in the making.
Yes. Initially I was expecting like something like that to happen, and then a little further along, I was like, if something like that happens, I'm going to be very unhappy. Because that would... turning into a horror game or actually having any true supernatural aspect would wreck so much of what actually makes this game.
This game is so much better because of how real it is.
Yeah.
Well, and what I thought was awesome is it felt like you were really uncovering a mystery, because you only know certain bits and pieces as you go, and sometimes that leads you down a path that isn't really the truth. Like, you start thinking, oh God, so this thing is happening, and then later on you encounter evidence that contradicts it. And it's so the way that the zone, not zones, but the way the house is laid out, you unlock certain parts and you're learning bits and pieces of information that if you had been able to get into them in the wrong order, they wouldn't necessarily be as interesting.
Did anyone go in the wrong order? I'm curious. They're on their first playthrough.
I did. In one point, I didn't, for whatever reason, I missed the sister's bathroom until I came back to her bedroom to unlock her locker. So I got it didn't really affect anything that I went there out of order. Mostly I already knew about her relationship before going in there. But that was the one point.
I asked because you can absolutely just go upstairs right off the bat, but they do such a good job at putting the answering machine off to the left side that you're sort of gravitated towards that. And then
I didn't even see the upstairs until...
Yeah, and then might as well continue that way. Yeah.
We talked about level design a little while ago. The house is not laid out like a house is laid out ever. But the level design is fantastic because it's just believable enough, but it guides you in the ways that it wants you to go without it being just an obvious linear path.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that I only got that one single journal entry out of order out of all of them I think that's a testament to the way they design the level to guide you the way they want you to go.
The other thing that it does so well is light. That game is, if it isn't already basically a textbook for our new designers to learn how to do lighting, it should be, because even Gone Home's a fairly contentious game because as people get very uppity about you don't do anything, you just walk around, and it's whatever. It's still brilliant in terms of its level design and its lighting.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is probably a discussion for later, but again, I do want to talk a little bit about whether or not it actually is a game or not. But I mean, because to me, I would label it more in the terms of a motion comic.
It is a bit of an interactive story.
Yes, that's exactly the term I would use for it.
I just don't know how meaningful that distinction is.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I would argue that it's at least as much of a game as Myst is.
I was about to say,
I guess you're right. That and what was the other one?
Ribbon?
Seventh Guest.
Yeah.
Yes.
And 11th Hour,
Yeah. I mean,
so yeah, I guess
is this with cheaper quality effects and some random games thrown in each room.
What? I mean, we like it or not, we have a word for interactive entertainment shown on a screen. It's called video games.
Yeah.
This is it's for me. It's sort of the same as is our game's art question. I mean, I don't know that that's a question that's sensibly answered in any meaningful way.
This game is art, and I will fight you on that.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And the level design is really ingenious because there's so many things that you have to really examine, almost tear apart the room to find. For example, the porn stash we talked about earlier. You had to have removed several books before you could even see it.
Yeah,
there were
open
things.
The cabinet, take the lid off the box, pull the books out. Oh yeah.
There were things hidden under the bed that you could only see if you were down on the floor. You could get down at ground level. So it was interesting because the rooms worked on a lot of different levels.
I do also want to call out one of my favorite pieces, the record player that the dad had that he was testing.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been some interesting effort going into replicating a poor quality record player. Because every time the trumpets on that song crescendoed, it distorted in a really awkward, uncomfortable way. That still sounded like a bad record player.
Right. Well, that indirectly reminds me. So the one mystery in this game that was never answered. What the hell happened to all the VCRs? Every single VCR in the house is missing.
I don't know.
There's a note.
I must have missed that one because everything was unhooked and it was driving me nuts.
It's not just VCRs. There's a bunch of things that you can find that are valuable and missing.
Did Sam take those?
There's a note right at the beginning. There's a note where Sam is like, "Katie, tell mom and dad I'm sorry about all the missing stuff."
Yep.
Oh yeah, I do remember.
Okay.
That. Okay, that.
Well, I just didn't know enough to know what that meant at that point.
Yeah.
That was early enough on that
And you're like, I don't know what's missing. What do you mean missing? And as you look around, there's stuff missing.
Yeah.
Okay, so must have pawned it for money to travel on.
Yeah.
Gas
reasonable.
money, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought it was weird that like the Super Nintendo was missing, but all these the games were around.
Some of the carts were still around.
Yeah. Yeah, there was at least one that wasn't there.
Well, no, it was returned. There's another note that there's like a.
That's right. She did finally give it back to the.
Yeah, because the previous neighbor kid goes into this whole discussion about how he wishes they were friends again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but oh man.
I also liked looking at all the labels of all of the clearly recorded off of television.
God,
VCR tapes,
every single
VHS
one
tapes,
of them. It was amazing.
Well,
amazing.
And you can tell by the handwriting whose one it is.
Yes.
One thing I will comment on, and Grace, you may be able to verify this one, but there's a thing that I distinctly remember in the parents' bathroom of every 90s household I went into. That may still be a thing, but I don't necessarily know if it is anymore. But mom's jewelry bowl.
That one, not personally, but from other friends, yes.
Yeah, it was definitely a thing I remember.
Like, my mom didn't have a jewelry bowl, but she had like this tray, and that was where her active jewelry was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But usually there was, I distinctly remember like a bowl or like a little thing that always had tons of jewelry in it. So it was like whatever we're wearing today.
What I thought was so disturbing was the furniture in the house was a distinct mix of 70s furniture and 80s furniture that I had seen in so many houses.
Yep.
But
anyway, my thing about the bowl, there isn't one. But there is, and I always thought this was a weird bit. I'm trying to remember where I saw it, but there's one of those little woven bowls just like lying randomly about the house. And yeah, all I can think of is mom's jewelry is some of what Sam took.
Could be. I did not catch that, but you could be right.
So yeah.
So I kind of am. I sort of already know, but sort of for our listeners, I guess I kind of would like to sort of go around and just like, were you an appropriate age for like this game in the 90s? Like I was absolutely like just probably a year old. Like I was probably Lonnie's age or like a year younger, I guess. Like, so I just like this game was so perfectly spot on for me. But like I know Belle, you're pretty close, right?
Yeah, like I graduated in 1994, so like everything about this, like X-Files was absolutely a thing when I was in high school, and the X-Files poster was, just spot on. Like, so everything about this was a nostalgia trip. Like, I remember those video cassettes. Like, we had so many that would have 3 separate movies on the label squeezed in there. The mix of furniture. The only thing that bugged me, and this is just stupid, but it kind of bothered me that we left our luggage on the front porch.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not like really even... I realized they had to build an enclosed area, but it's supposed to represent the front of the house, and it's just like, okay, we're just gonna leave our luggage out here.
Well, you get a very concerning letter right off the bat.
Yeah.
I mean, if I came home from a trip and I saw that letter from my sister, I would not be worried about my luggage.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have even
I would
noticed
have a
the letter.
concern.
I wouldn't have even noticed the letter until I had dragged my luggage in.
I do like how there is a puzzle right at the beginning. How do you get into a locked door?
Yeah.
That is
The
your
Christmas stock!
house? You
Good
go
old Christmas duck.
Yeah.
You go and you find something that a key could be hidden under, because
Yeah.
that's where keys go.
Yep. And that trains you to pick things up to see if there are things underneath them, which there absolutely are.
But also, that is the logical place to look for a key.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, if you grew up in the 90s, you know where you look for keys, like under a rock, or under a potted plant, or under some weird statue.
Right.
And not under the mat, because that's where everybody expects.
Because, yeah, people think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt more real than if it had been under the steps or under the mat.
But yeah, going back to age, I graduated in 94. I mean, in 95, I'm sorry. So, yeah, like, spot on.
Yeah.
I am a little bit too young for this game. I graduated in 2003. But, that said, I remember most of this stuff.
I think Ash is honestly the only one who's probably too young to remember a lot of the things that were in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sort of sad that he's not here because I kind of would value that sort of opinion from someone who is a bit more of an outsider to this. I mean, I graduated in 1996 and this is all completely spot on.
And the music was spot on.
Yeah.
Music was amazing. It was definitely one of my favorite things in this game. And it's not that it's ambient. I mean, it can be ambient music, but you actually actively find a cassette tape that someone recorded and put it in the cassette player and listen to it.
And I remember that RCA. I remember that RCA player too. We had one of those. Their sound quality was horrible.
Yeah, I got in the habit of when I go into a room, scan real quick for a cassette player, and if there was, look for the cassette so I could pop it in and then, have it playing while I explored the room.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
This says something that I think is really funny about my experience growing up was I have not actually listened to any of the cassette tapes in the entire game because I wouldn't put on a tape while walking around an empty house because it would be too loud.
Interesting.
Because then I wouldn't be able to hear if somebody came home.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would absolutely listen to those cassette tapes. They were great. Was anyone else weirded out by or maybe saddened by the state of their refrigerator?
Yeah.
A little bit. Yes. It's clear that they've been surviving on delivery pizza and random stuff for a little bit.
Well, honestly, that's just another sign of the state of disarray the family was in. I mean, if you follow the thread for each member of the family, they weren't interacting as a family.
Yeah.
They were three separate people inhabiting a huge house, which gave them plenty of space to go off and be by themselves.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's clear that family relations were kind of falling apart while you were gone.
Yeah.
Well, and all of the drastically different little nooks that people were in.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone definitely had their own spaces, and they were inhabited by that one person.
Yeah.
Occasionally, there were a few communal spaces that had things from a couple different people in it, but each of your family members certainly had at least one, if not multiple, spaces that were wholly theirs.
Yeah, the majority of rooms related to a particular person.
I feel like there was one person who was very underrepresented in that regard, and there's a reason for that.
Mom?
Yeah,
she had her art room, but that's really all I remember. But given her job, it's, and everything that was going on.
Well,
it's not
given
surprising.
the job and the potential side relationship that was going on,
that she was at least considering an affair. Yeah.
Yeah.
The impression I ultimately concluded that she did not actually follow through on it, but she was definitely considering it.
Well, and okay, so maybe I'm just reading something into it, but the college roommate, I kind of got the impression that maybe her and Mom were a little closer than just roommates.
Oh, Carol?
Yeah.
I think Carol is the sole unrepentantly awful person in this game.
Yeah, I think she's the person who's, just like, yeah.
Yes.
Gosh, I'd have forgotten about her. But yeah.
Because there were two letters that I found from Carol.
Yeah, I don't like Carol. I didn't get that feeling necessarily, Bill, but
yeah, I
maybe.
didn't necessarily get that particular impression.
I mostly my feeling was mostly that she was that kind of woman that's unhappy in her own life and maybe drinks a little too much and ends up like pushing her friend inappropriately into something she really shouldn't be getting into. Not that I, have ever met anybody like this.
I think that the most telling part of that story is the wedding invitation.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the like, oh, okay, Mom, that's not gonna happen.
Wait, what?
What?
The wedding invitation? Like,
yeah.
Was that in the?
It was on the fridge, I think,
it's on the
or
fridge.
in the kitchen.
Who was that between?
Ranger Rick and his fiance.
Okay, got it. Now I'm on the same page.
Yeah, and that was part of why I just figured that, and Mom took the job closer to home and recommended Rick for the job where she used to be.
Yep.
So all those things together led me to conclude that Mom decided not to pursue that.
Right, but sequence of operation, you find this out way after you found out all of the other bits.
Exactly. You find these in the order that you find these things are, first you find out that, oh God, Mom might be having an affair, and then you find other things that, and come to the realization that, oh, okay, maybe it didn't actually happen. So at least there's that.
In the meantime, you're also finding out what a terrible husband Terrence is.
Oh.
Well, but also
he's a thoroughly dissatisfied person. I mean,
how unhappy he is, and especially one thing in particular, how far back that may go, and how the uncle may be directly responsible for it.
Well, yes. I mean, you've got his like.
Your dad is obsessed with 1963 for a reason.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Yep.
But yes. You've got the abusive uncle. You've got the not terribly much better dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like, your grandfather.
Oh God, yeah, awful. The letter from your grandfather.
Yeah, that note was awful.
I'm not actually, and the note is like, I mean, you see him obsessing over the phrasing in the note.
Yeah, it's this. Yeah, just this very emotionless.
Well, it's like
this is good. I'm proud of you, but you could have done something so much better.
Yeah.
Well, this was decent, but dispense with the artifice. You can do better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see it on his board.
It's basically like, okay, good job doing this, but everything you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Well, what I think is interesting is like you jumped on Terrence as a horrible husband, and what I'm thinking is Terrence is the husband, the stay-at-home husband in the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't get horrible.
Well, okay.
He's a very unhappy and pretty unpleasant kind of person.
He's very unhappy and it seems like
disaffected. Yeah.
It seems like Jan is trying so hard. Like, what got me was Jan's planner.
Yes, with the things marked out.
Yeah, with like, we're gonna go bowling,
dancing, and
then we're gonna go. I've got cooking class, and then we're gonna go ballroom dancing, and then like,
and then the next week, I think maybe the bowling is marked out the next week, and then the following week, the bowling and the dancing are both marked out.
Yep.
And then the week after that, they're not even written down in the planner.
Well, no. Bowling gets, like, ballroom dancing is crossed out every single time, but she keeps planning it. Bowling, eventually, she just stops planning.
She just stops, yeah.
What I think is,
she's trying, but yeah.
Man, that's an interesting... So, because this game is so careful about misleading you, I always look for what are the things that are actually written in the voices of the people involved. Like what? And there's
you do get a bunch of stuff that's, in particular, you get views of your mother and your father from your little sister's point of view. Yeah. In a number of cases, and then also views from other characters of other people to a lesser degree. Yeah.
But you almost, there's very little for everybody except Sam, and Caitlin as the protagonist, that gives you any kind of viewpoint into what's the I'm looking for what those people are actually thinking.
Yeah,
because you
for
can
mom and
draw
dad,
a lot of inferences based on the things that other people say, but like with Carol, you don't know. There's no way to know if mom is reading Carol's letters while swilling bourbon and going, "Oh yeah, she's totally right," or like rolling her eyes and being like, "It's really Carol." Mm-hmm. And in the same boat, like certainly Terrence's dad has some like deep-seated issues, but there's not a lot that's written in his voice.
Yeah. He has the least, I think.
Like he's almost not represented at all in terms of his voice. And so I found it really easy to pick up on these various questionable like things about him. But I don't actually see that much to suggest that he's like even a bad father or a bad husband or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I'm pretty sure the only things written in his voice are his largely unfollowable noteboard and his note to Sam.
Yeah. And a partially written review of a piece of stereo equipment.
He also has a whole bunch of attempted manuscripts.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like you can pick up from him that he's not all that great a writer,
or at least that he's not great with what he's doing now.
Yeah,
I really got the impression that he is not happy writing reviews of audio equipment.
No, he hates it.
Well,
and he's like near the end of his rope on that.
He's also got, there's a whole bunch of drafts at the third book in the series. Mm-hmm. And as you read them, you will notice that he is heavily self-medicating with alcohol as like all ability to write starts to break down.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, is I feel like this is a game that takes you on an emotional roller coaster where things are utterly hopeless for a period of time, and then towards the very end, things are actually looking up for everyone involved.
Yeah, by the end of the game, I was really optimistic for pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
And like for the family as a whole even, like that things could, in the long term, work out.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, like, okay, so the parents, spoiler time, the parents are off on a couple's retreat. Like, that's why they're not there.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, sister has run off and girlfriend didn't decide to go to the army. That in itself is probably a little fraught because, the army doesn't like that sort of thing. But still.
Well, she never actually enlisted from the sound of it, so she should be okay.
See, I thought she was actually going to boot camp. And at that point, you've already enlisted, and you're expected at boot camp.
Yeah. On that said, not showing up for boot camp, usually they don't really worry about that too much. It's people that, try to run off after they've gotten started that are a problem.
So I'm probably more biased against the parents just because of the whole, oh, don't worry, it's just a phase thing.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of, I don't know how I feel about this family in the long term, because not just the phase thing, but there were several other things that they said or did, or some of the little scraps of paper and things that they had around, that I was not super happy with their treatment of Sam and their mindset, and I wouldn't blame her if she never wanted to deal with them again.
Well, okay, but I have to say, right or wrong, this game is a period piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the attitude of the people in this game is exactly the attitude of pretty much the majority of the people during the 90s. It's problematic, absolutely, but it is of the time. It would feel weird if the parents weren't questionable.
If they were just okay with it immediately.
That's true. And I mean, it's a big part of the story and what's going on with these characters. But that said, again, I would totally not blame Sam if she didn't want anything to do with them.
Yeah. For me, it was it was a poignant reminder of in a lot of, also, this is they're in a relatively small town.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a big, this is a town small enough to have that creepy house.
Yeah, I grew up in a town of 2,000.
The house where that guy went psycho.
And
so, I understand that aspect of things, the small town nature.
Yeah, and all I can think of is small town in the 90s. I bet these parents were the understanding ones.
Oh, almost certainly.
And
from the sound of it, if you the things that we read about Lonnie's, I think it was Lonnie's mom, is super Christian, right wings from the sound of it. So yeah, I kind of think that these were. And
I think that's so, because I think that Grace is totally right in that I don't blame Sam for not wanting to come back ever. But and I think I don't leave this game optimistically. I feel like this game is a prologue to some really awful times.
I worry about the the long-term viability of any relationship that began in high school, but
Yeah, that's the thing too.
Especially on that note, Sam has not graduated.
Yeah. And
so
and
that's even another whole thing, right? Lonnie graduated, but
Sam is not
done with high school, but she ran out.
And it's kind of understandable that your parents would be would already be concerned about Sam, because you discover, she's been shoplifting, she's been smoking, and her grades have gone down, based on stuff that we find. So it's not, it's reasonable that they would already be a little worried.
I didn't actually find a shoplifting thing.
There were 2 shirts in her locker with the shoplifting tags still on them.
Oh.
Yep.
She's been shoplifting.
I didn't actually find her grade slipping.
Yeah,
I definitely found her grades.
Yeah. There was a project notice or something like that.
Yep.
So that part's understandable. I feel like Sam probably doesn't want anything to do with her parents, but she does still want a relationship with her sister.
Yeah.
And so she's
obviously,
likely to.
Yeah.
So they're going to get back in touch. And I honestly feel like the parents, once they're not in their own mess that they clearly have been over the past year, might eventually be willing to be understanding. Maybe. Or maybe not. But I felt like it wasn't, set in stone that everything is awful. So that's something.
And the story of Captain Allegra is also fascinating.
Yes. I loved finding the different versions of the story from different times in Sam's life.
The first one starting when she was really young.
Yes.
Yep. Really, really little, scrawled, and little kid chicken scratch.
Yeah.
Well, the
Captain
first
Allegra
one
and the first mate. That was the first one I found, I'm pretty sure.
The first
Yeah.
one in the series is actually the last one you find, because it's the one that Daniel gives her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, there's...
But there's another one in a closet. That's
there's an early one. Yeah, that's
just. I'm fairly certain the first one you find though is from early enough that the first mate is still male.
Yeah.
And then the second one you find is like a very recently written one where the first mate is female, and then you find the Halloween, the picture of the Halloween costumes and. Yeah,
I did not find pictures of Halloween costumes.
Yeah,
I think it was like sketches.
They were great.
It was great. It was really great.
I mean, they were
in the sewing room.
Yeah.
Of
like the captain costume for your sister and the first mate costume for Lonnie, and it's pretty great. I was also very relieved and happy when it turned out that when she finally did like let Daniel come over, that like he was a really nice, understanding guy who just wanted to still be friends.
Yeah, that was somewhat amazing. But I think it was really good because I feel like Sam really needed that, especially sort of at the time that you encounter that in the story.
Yeah, because there had been like the things that she'd like written up to that point is like, things about like that he'd gotten weird or this and that, and and then after that point, I was like, well, maybe it was both of you got a little like you were both changing and shifting, and yeah.
So that part really hit home for me because like I went through that with my very first best friend. It was like the neighbor girl next to my grandmother's house. And as we grew up, like there was a period where we grew apart because like that's just the natural order of things. And it was weird. Like, I think it was weird for both of us. And as adults, we're friends again. And, she has a family and we chit-chat every so often. And it's just, I think that's just part of it. Like, I mean, there's this weird, awkward transitional period where everyone's figuring out who they are again.
Yeah.
But when you've been best friends, it's like, it just feels awkward on both sides.
Yep.
Well, and one of the things that this game did really well, from my perspective, is catching so accurately, or at least in, 20-some years of memory, the awkwardness and the intensity of teenage relationships and interactions.
Yeah.
And I mean, so many little touches. I mean, the interaction with her friend, and the interactions with Lonnie as they're getting to know each other, and
the notes that they sent back and forth.
Those notes.
Those were
they
wonderful.
Were amazing, and I mean, I don't know. This is definitely, I don't know if guys did this in high school, but like all of my friends and I, like all of the girls, wrote notes like that. I mean, not quite like that, but back and forth with each other every day, all of my friends. And so seeing those notes that, got passed back and forth and answered, I know exactly what was happening there because we each had a notebook. And you had one for each friend, and you just pass them between each other as you walk down the hall between classes. And during class, you would read that note and respond to it, and then you would swap it between classes again. And so, like, seeing that exchange back and forth, I knew exactly what, what had resulted in this page that had this conversation on it.
And it's one of those things that can only happen in a period game, because now it'd all be text messages.
Yep.
Yeah. Suddenly, I have a bunch of perspective on my childhood.
Yeah, like no, like I ended up being an intermediary a lot of times where like so and so needs to give this to the so and so. Okay, here, pass this along. Okay.
I just
Because
wondered
I was
why-
apparently trusted.
I just wondered why everybody had the same notebooks and why I never got the memo.
Now it all makes sense.
Oh,
I also, so I think I mentioned before, how I reached the point, I pretty early on, came to the conclusion that if there is anything actually a cult in this game, I will be very, very unhappy. And they did a really good job of like keeping that question open for a very long time and like springing things on you that like that are that look occult. They're like, oh God, is something supernatural about to happen?
Look, the
But
basement was creepy.
It was all just two teenage girls being teenage girls in a creepy
Yes.
house.
and it's absolutely so accurate. You have no idea.
Playing with a Ouija board, making a pinnacle to try and summon the spirit of the dead uncle. Like,
My God, we would that whole thing. Like, there were the girls in my class were convinced there was a ghost in the library, and they had named it, and they had like done all this stuff to identify who this person was, and it was a thing.
oh, and also, I walked into the sister's bedroom, or into the sister's bathroom, and there's the bathtub with all these red handprints in it. I'm like, oh God, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a bottle of red hair dye.
yeah.
Never mind.
Well, and I mean, that's, we can sort of touch on this. I mean, from the very first note that you see until almost the very end of the game, it is still somewhat open, like what actually happened to Sam.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it did such a good job of just maintaining that tension that, I mean, so I cried multiple times playing this game, even on subsequent playthroughs. But the first time that I played, when I got, I was like, okay, I got the key to the attic, and I'm going up there, and
Yeah.
like I was just like
I was-
absolutely bawling, like because you just weren't sure, like did something terrible happen, or
Yeah.
did something
I
good
was-
happen?
So
I was so relieved when I walked into the attic and there was nobody there.
Yeah, I was kind of afraid that there would be a body up there.
Yeah. And like, this is probably why I am very optimistic about the ending, is because them running off together is so much better than what I was imagining I would run into.
Exactly.
It's there are so many worse possibilities that could have gone.
But it was-
I mean, ugh.
It was so intense, and I think it's also it was interesting because it's a pretty moderately paced game, and you're walking around this house and you don't have any control over the speed that your character moves.
Yeah,
By
you
the
can't
time
run.
I was going up there, I was like, I want to run and I can't run, and I'm just like plodding up these steps, and like I was just like absolutely about to burst by
It's
the
like, oh,
time
I've
I
got-
got up there.
I've got the key to the attic. I need to get there right now.
You
Maybe
know
I
the
won't be
wrong
too
way
late.
to play this game? You can walk in and walk right into the pentagram chamber. There's nothing stopping you.
Right.
Can you open the panel without
Yeah.
being aware that it's there? Huh.
Yep. Yeah, I actually did that by accident on my second playthrough. I was like,
Huh.
oh, I shouldn't be here yet.
That would. I mean, gosh, finding that early in the game would. Ugh.
Playing
With
it
no
backwards
context?
like that would
God.
give you a totally different impression on. Or does the game just end?
The
Because
game
like,
ends. If you can grab the attic key, go up to
Oh,
the
because the
attic.
key's in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
The stories that you get are very dependent on what you find. And there's a
Yes.
lot of pieces that you can find that significantly change the story.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff you can miss. Like
I didn't find anything about Oscar in my first playthrough, so I was still unresolved whether there was something weird in a cult going on.
Yeah, because you can totally miss the combination for the safe in the basement.
You could totally miss that safe.
Yeah.
Which is what happened to me.
And that's the only place that you learn anything about, what happened, what your great uncle apparently did.
So here's an interesting thing I noted on my second playthrough. The uncle wrote his last will and testament in April of 73. Or no, in June of 73. You were born in December of 73. I'm wondering if your birth announcement reached him and that's what jarred him into action.
Maybe.
Huh.
I didn't think about that. That's quite possible.
There's a bunch of evidence of him trying to make amends.
Yes.
Yeah. It's clear that he feels incredibly guilty.
But he's trying to make amends and failing on multiple occasions. And the last thing he was able to do was just bequeath this house.
Yeah, will you find the height markings of Terrence?
Yes.
In the secret underground basement?
Yeah. I saw those and I was like, that's a weird place to be doing this. And then, I went and I found the safe and I was like, I wonder where the combination of the safe is. And eventually I found the combination and I came back and opened it. And I read a letter. It's like, oh, maybe that's why that's here.
I am also kind of curious. Well, you'll notice that there's the room off to the side there that doesn't have a working light. You can't see anything in there, but I'm guessing it would be very, it's left to the imagination what's in there.
Mm-hmm.
All you can see are, some light reflecting off of cobwebs in the corner.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's another interesting thing in that area. That's where you find the letter of Sam talking about having sex.
Which one?
Yeah.
There's a letter behind a thing, and you can pick it up for a couple of seconds, and then your character puts it down. It's like, nope, not reading that. Nope. I am not reading about my little sister's sex life.
That's right. That's also, this is one of the things that I think there were a few points in the game that that stuff like this was done, but there's the one in particular that I noticed and really liked was there's a green skull in your sister's bedroom on the shelf. It was is Hecho in Mexico on the shelf, and it's and it doesn't mean anything. It's just this skull on the shelf, but it's really noticeable because it's this green skull. So it's you almost certainly pick it up and look at it and put it down. It's like green skull, and then down in the basement you find a box with the letter from Lonnie about finding the skull. On her trip to Mexico, and and buying it for your sister, and that I just really liked that. It just that little thing. Making that thing that I found, that I saw suddenly have this meaning.
It was funny because I kind of glossed over the skull originally. And so when I found the box, I was like, wait, what skull? And it drove me thinking that the whole thing was the whole occult thing originally. Because I was like, wait, what skull? Is there some creepy skull thing going on here?
See, I remembered the skull because I picked it up and then it said Hecho in Mexico. I was like, oh, is this a magical realism thing? Because, Achewood.
Yep.
I also, and I came to the conclusion at the very end that my fears were ungrounded, but from a very early point, basically from the point that I found the dad's writing area and read the stuff there, I was really worried that he was beginning to suffer from dementia or something. Because there was the one letter from his whoever at the magazine that he was writing reviews for, telling him that no one wanted to read his weird digressions about his life and all this stuff that he was writing in his reviews. What? And between that and then the subsequent manuscripts that Kodra interpreted as him being drunk, I interpreted that as possibly his ability to write beginning to leave him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was where I was. That was where I was too, because he was just so despondent.
But then later when I found, you know, the reissues of his books and the letters from the new publisher house, and then the letter that he wrote to them, it's like, okay,
He's
was
found
more
himself
just
again.
Yeah, it was that he was unhappy with where he was, and now maybe he's got another shot at what he really wanted to do.
Yeah, putting a lot of what his writing under the lens of somebody who was suffering from past abuse makes I've been thinking about it. The fact that he is all about a time traveling hero that goes back in time and prevents past wrongs.
Yeah.
And then the third one is going to be, you know, the guys show up again. He's like, oh God, is President Kennedy in danger again? No, this time we're going to save you.
Yes, that's really actually like maybe he's starting to come to grips with it.
Yeah, like the combination of that and the couples therapy made me optimistic about the parents, and then maybe once the parents are in good shape with each other again, you know, and faced with the choice of being accepting of their daughter or never seeing her again, maybe they'll make the right choice. But, you know, I always want a happy ending, so that's just me.
I was just very happy that the ending was not the terrible ending I was afraid of.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Like, you know, how will things go for them? How, you know, will it last? I don't know. But they're together, and at least for now they're happy. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I think this conversation has been sort of interesting because we haven't really dived in much into the relationship between Sam and Lonnie. And so this is where I wish that Inky was here to have, you know, another girl's perspective also. But I mean, there were points just listening to, you know, her journals about, you know, meeting Lonnie and early on as they were just still getting to know each other, where I was just like absolutely breaking down in tears because it hit home in a really very particular way. And the combination of being so emotionally truthful and being so spot on to the time period. I mean, there's a point where she's, you know, writing this letter to her sister and saying, you know, right? Like, you have to have known. I've always known since She-Ra. And it was, it was this absolutely perfect combination of that, you know, just emotional truth, and that is, you know, exactly the, you know, that time.
I read that when I was like, that makes perfect sense. Of course that would be a point that you'd realize. It certainly all felt like entirely real to me. I was very drawn in, and, you know.
I mean, I think the thing that was sort of interesting to me, and this is sort of only speaking to my own experience in my town and my friends, but I was almost, you know, jealous, I guess, that she absolutely knew herself at that time, and that she had someone else who also absolutely knew herself at that time, and they were able to connect in that way.
Well,
because
yeah.
I had so many friends in high school who, you know, like, I thought these thoughts, but there was no way that I even processed them fully, because that was just not a thing that was an option. And, you know, finding out from reunions and Facebook and things much, much later down the road, like, oh, well, you know, this person is a lesbian, and this person is also, like, these friends of mine who I connected with, that none of us, ever sort of made that connection when we were in high school together, because everyone was either so confused or terrified that you would never even reach out, even to your closest friends.
Yeah, and so that she was able to realize that about herself, and that the person that she connected with actually responded, and yeah.
Well, and what's so difficult about being in a small town is that in truth, most of the people that you're friends with aren't really people that you 100% relate to. It's just a marriage of convenience out of what is available.
Because there's only so many people.
Yeah, these are the best friends I had available. So yeah, I don't know, that was sheer luck that she found someone in a small town.
And there were a lot of false starts too. I mean, there were a number of notes where after she had realized that she had a crush on Lonnie, and they were like, she was not sure how to interpret the things that Lonnie was saying to her, and it was awkward and intense.
Yes.
It happened in fits and starts. Lonnie called her beautiful after they got done dyeing her hair, and she didn't even know how to respond, and it wasn't until a couple days later that she tried to fumble out a response, and then Lonnie kissed her.
Yeah.
And in between, Lonnie wasn't sure whether there was, she had done something wrong. And, I mean, that note where Lonnie told Sam that she's beautiful, that was the first time that I cried, as I was playing through. And then I pretty much was just, constantly crying for the rest of the game.
Interestingly, I connected with this one from Caitlin's perspective.
Yeah, me too.
Because I have a younger sister who's gay and listened to a lot of punk music in high school, and it's and for me, it makes me think of all of the trouble my sister went through, and me being able to talk with her about it. And all I can think of is, man, I'm really sad for Caitlin, who's going to blame herself for this forever. Mm. And Sam knows it and is trying to
he's trying to soften the blow.
Trying to
tell
soften
her it's
the
not
blow.
her fault.
But you see it in every. But Sam is an intense teenager, and so everything Sam writes is super dramatic, and that just further intensifies it. And it doesn't help that all of the trophies on display are yours, and you got an A+ on the assignment, on the same assignment that
the health assignment.
I love that health assignment.
It's great.
It was amazing.
Caitlin's version of the health assignment was fantastic.
Wait, Caitlin's?
Or not Caitlin's, Sam's version.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
amazing.
Caitlin's is just by the book straight.
Caitlin's is just, you just reorganize the sentences, blah, blah,
got
blah, blah,
an
blah.
A+.
Yeah. Sam's was, wow.
Amazing.
Very impressive.
But
that teacher is a jerk.
Well,
wait,
yeah.
So I don't know. I interpreted the "see me" comment in a different way, I think.
If a teacher writes "see me" on an assignment, it's always ultra bad.
It's always bad.
Yeah,
it is never good.
It's never good.
I guess, but so the sequencing is interesting, because right after that you find a letter from her creative writing teacher being like, you should go to this college program for high school students.
Yeah, but that wasn't the creative writing teacher.
That was her health teacher. Different teacher.
It's her creative writing teacher sees something in her. And
the health teacher was probably a coach, honestly.
Probably.
Yeah.
And is the only teacher who gives her the time of day. Every single other teacher you see is just bagging on Sam.
Okay, I'm gonna go with my interpretation of that, which is that the health coach, the health teacher identified this as a very interesting piece of work and tried to get her in contact with the creative writing teacher to let her know.
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
I like that. That's a very optimistic interpretation.
I would like if that were true, but I don't
Yeah,
believe it.
no, it's absolutely that was like some coach who looked at that and was like, "What is wrong? You need to go see the counselor," is what happened
Yep.
there. Like, I guarantee
Yeah.
you, someone
Well-
read that and went, "Okay, you need to go talk to the counselor."
Yep.
If you're in a small town, your classes that will be taught by coaches are science, math, and health.
Nope.
Almost exclusively.
So, okay, that's interesting. Another touch I liked was, so there are Bibles in numerous places around the house,
All over the place.
all over the place, and you find Sam's in her room under, like, her Trapper Keeper from when she was in 4th grade. So, kind of indicates that maybe it's been a while for Sam, since, like, maybe she's been done with religion for a while for reasons.
Although, given the period, it's too early, really, for the anti-homosexuality sermons.
There was absolutely a TV
No.
program clipping, like that. I believe it was probably mom had clipped. That was, like, what was it, like, religious, camp for troubled teens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with homosexuality, like
Yeah.
like the dangers of homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
I must have missed that. Like, because...
Yeah. No, it was absolutely. I like praying the gay away was absolutely a thing.
See, I thought that was a product of the 2000s.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
No.
I think we heard less about it because homosexuality was still dangerous enough.
Well,
We
and
heard
part of
less
it...
about it
Yeah,
altogether, so we
Yeah.
heard less of the good and the bad.
exactly.
Well, part of it, too,
Yeah.
is, like, I'm from Oklahoma, so I think we got everything later.
I guarantee you had some religious groups doing exactly this sort of thing then, but it was, there weren't as many out people to
Yeah.
turn around and point fingers at how horrible those experiences were, because no one wanted, to talk about it, and no one wanted to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pointing at the people in, Hollywood and New York and places like that and how horrible they are there.
Well, and at least for my friends, coming out was something that happened when they went to college. None of them were even vaguely close to out in high school.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I don't know, not a single person. There was not a single person in my high school class that was out by the time we graduated from high school.
And honestly,
I know
not
multiple
even
of
that
them
I
are
can
out now.
not even that I can remember in the very much more progressive town next to us. So yeah, that was a thing.
I mean, I
that was
grew
pretty
up
much
in...
unthinkable at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I was in, a suburb of a major city, and I mean, and like I said, I had multiple friends and that I, know are out now, and absolutely were not then. And I mean, it's definitely an aspect of the times. I mean, even the religion thing, I mean, when I was in high school, I was the only out atheist in my class, and like, just for that stupid thing I caught so much shit. Like, I can't even imagine,
I can only
like,
imagine.
coming out
Jeez.
like as as gay, when like something as dumb as and trivial as a difference in religion caused a huge amount of grief.
Well, and small towns are really confused too, because, like, I mean, I grew up Catholic, and I had kids from the Protestant faiths coming up to me from elementary on wanting to know why I didn't believe in God. And I grew up Catholic.
It's like, yeah, you worship them saints.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway.
I got people, saying, "Why are you a devil worshiper?"
Yeah.
Like, no, not really. But anyway, yeah. I mean, small towns of any size can be cruel. High school is intensely cruel, and teenagers are just murderously cruel.
Yes.
I mean, hell, I'm not willing to be like vocal about my atheism in my real life. It's not
Worth it.
Not around here. It's not worth it.
I won't even talk politics in real life.
Yeah. I try to keep that to a minimum with people that, I don't know real well or know that I disagree with.
I try to keep that to our politics Slack chat channel.
Good plan.
But as far as identifying with somebody, I identified mostly with Sam.
I mean, I obviously definitely identified most with Sam. I mean, Caitlin is sort of the technical protagonist, that is the character you're playing, but absolutely this is not a story about her. It's a story about her family and in particular, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, of all the people involved, she's the one that you really don't ever learn anything about. You really don't know any more about Caitlin at the end of the game than you did at the beginning.
I don't actually agree.
I don't agree with that either.
Because you get a lot of Caitlin. You get a lot of Caitlin in mouse over commentary, almost exclusively, and you get a lot from Caitlin with mouse over commentary.
You also get...
You learn some of what she feels about things, yeah.
And you get it, I think, also, you do get some perspective from the way that Sam addresses her. So you don't necessarily get a lot of new information about her, but you do learn about how Sam views her and how Sam interacts with her and sees her in the framework of their family.
Yeah, I mean, you realize pretty quickly that Sam trusts Caitlin.
Yeah, but even more than that, Sam is the good child, or Caitlin is the good child.
Yes.
Caitlin is the, she gives all of the answers the teachers want. You find that exact same health assignment.
The health assignment, yeah.
That was assigned to Sam that she got the see me on from Caitlin, which got the check plus because she did the assignment absolutely in the right way.
Yeah.
And she's got all of these first place ribbons and trophies for her track team.
And it's notable that one of them is a team. So, Caitlin doesn't have problems making friends.
Yes.
There's a lot of little subtle details.
I mean,
I guess mostly is that you don't learn anything surprising about Caitlin. Nothing that I learned through that, surprised me or caused me to re-examine Caitlin in any way. She was the way I viewed her at the end of the game did not, was not noticeably different from how I viewed her, shortly into the game.
That's fair.
I identified probably a lot with Sam, but that's because I had a lot of high school romances going on, and I remember how those were, and yeah.
My high school romances can be summed up as infatuation with someone that had no interest in me while I was completely oblivious to the people that were.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I don't know. I identified so much with Caitlin because I can see her sitting around and being like, what do I do?
Yeah.
How can I even start to fix this?
Yeah. What can I do about this? How? Yeah.
I'd also point out that as a guy who married a girl he dated in high school, I probably might have a minority view on this sort of thing, but that also makes me more optimistic about Sam and Lana.
Yeah.
See, and I'm the exact opposite. My senior year, I purposefully didn't get involved with anyone because I knew the second we graduated, it would be over.
And I have the other extreme view, which is that I very nearly married someone that I dated in high school, and it was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I sort of count my lucky stars that we didn't actually go through with it.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, it was hard to tell, but I kind of got the impression that this was kind of Sam's first real relationship. Like, it felt that this was not just, her first relationship with a girl, but her first relationship in general.
Yeah,
Well,
and there was a lot of that awkward intensity, which are these are words that we've used multiple times here, that really sort of drove some of that home.
Yeah, and I think that in addition makes me a little less optimistic about the long term possibilities.
I would
Could work out.
point out that while yes, it was not really much of a relationship. She definitely had some, I feel like, feelings or something going on with Daniel for a bit there.
Well, I didn't get the impression that there was ever actually that they ever actually like did anything about it, though. That was, they were good friends, and then as they started to get older, obviously she's supposed to start getting interested in boys, and this is the boy she's closest to, and that she's good friends with. So obviously he's going to be the one, but
it never happened.
But it never actually happened.
Yeah, I never got the sense that something happened between them. It was more like that they were childhood friends who went through puberty and got weird and, sort of split apart.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess I sort of partially, until a little bit further on when you actually, see that she had interacted with him again, I did sort of interpret some of the Daniel got weird thing as like Daniel got interested in me and I like was weirded out by that.
Yeah. That was what I assumed.
At first.
At first.
So the conversation is slowing down drastically at this point. The listeners will not hear the long silence that just happened. Any last things that we really want to talk about this game?
If you play it, if you're listening to this and haven't played it, first, what are you doing?
Seriously. If we just spoiled the entire game for you, too bad. It's your own fault. Yeah. We warned you.
But whenever you pick something up in the game, anything you can pick up in the game, put back and then mouse over it again.
Yeah.
Because you get very different things. Like the condom in the parents' bedroom is really funny from Caitlin's perspective.
I liked, is it Steely? Staggy? And then when you look at it, you can see the tag says Staggy on it, and then you put it down and it's Staggy.
Yeah, I like that.
But I would also say take your time with this game. Even if you take your time, it's going to max out at about 3 hours. And there's a lot of detailed work that goes into all of the objects that's worth looking at.
This is not a game to rush through. Take your time, open everything you can open, pick up everything you can pick up, turn it around.
Not everything. I mean, not everything is going to be super interesting.
But it's worth checking.
Will be surprising. Yeah.
Also, I wish I could pay $5.75 to go see Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
Or $40 is enough to get enough pizza for what is there, like 5-day weekend?
Yeah.
Okay, must be nice.
Yeah, I loved the inaccurate description of the adrenaline scene in Pulp Fiction. Which was exactly how a high school student who probably hadn't actually seen the movie would explain it to another high school student, who was then writing a letter to a third high school student about it.
I also love that everybody's clothes, like going through people's drawers, says a lot about them.
Yeah.
Was anyone else is anyone else completely frustrated by magic eye puzzles and glad that they no longer exist?
I'm glad they don't exist. I could see them just fine,
yeah.
I could never see them ever, and they made me crazy.
Thank you, Grace.
Like actual ones in real life, I often have trouble with, but the ones in the game, I could see them immediately.
Man, it made me think of mall rats. And the scene where the guy packs a lunch, because today's going to be the day that he sees the puzzle.
Poor Willem. Willem finally saw the sailboat.
Were the images in the puzzle relevant to the game at all?
No, it was a heart, and I don't even remember. But no, I didn't. They didn't have any meaning.
No, but those were actually harder to see because, like, there was just something about them being digitized that made them harder for me to see. But God, does that place this in the time period too?
This is
Oh, yeah.
really interesting.
Very 90s.
This is going to be a really interesting piece of work in like 10 to 20 years as like, oh, this is a very, very true 90s period piece.
Yeah.
Dot matrix printers.
Yeah.
So I have this weird thought that, like, you know, the next couple of decades is going to bear out or not. But, like, I sort of wonder if the greater internet at large is going to be forever stuck in the 90s the way it kind of seems like it is.
Well, I mean, that is
like,
the moment the internet was born, as we know it.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of, like, weird incidental stuff about the 90s that has persisted a lot longer than other similar stuff from different eras.
And it makes some sense because that's the moment that we suddenly have a true record on the internet of.
Yeah.
Like, you can still go find old GeoCities pages and stuff.
Well, or if
90
you
whatever.
can't, you can find them on the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, you can still find these ancient sites that were created in 1990 something and gaze upon them in all their hideous glory.
I think the internet is honestly going to be a lot like fashion in that it's cyclical. Like, things will keep getting dug up from the past and be given a new life.
Yeah. I wonder when 90s cred is going to evaporate, if it ever will. Cuz, like, I remember growing up in the 90s, people with 80s cred were really cool, and people with, like, 70s cred were either, like, kind of older cool people or, like, your dad.
Yeah.
And like, that was a super fine line because some people's dads were cool.
Yeah.
But, like, but I haven't seen that same decay.
Well, the 80s are still alive and kicking, for that matter.
But that said, if we went and asked a teenager, would they agree?
I was about to say
that's actually where I'm getting it from. Is there's a whole bunch of, like, teenage affectations that put a bunch of, like, cool 90s throwback stuff in the forefront in the way that I haven't seen with the 80s. Sorry, I do marketing, so this is demographic research.
I mean, I don't guess I would complain if the 90s, like, somehow remained perpetually cool. That would probably be okay for me.
It's like
that seems really weird.
Yeah, but it's just lasted, and I think it might just be the internet thing.
I was
keeps
about to say
keeps it around a lot longer than it otherwise would. But we don't have any. We don't have a sample size.
You can never truly forget the 90s because it's all still there. Saved.
Well, and in a similar vein, the decades hence haven't had a unique identity.
Yeah.
Like, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s all had a unique identity, and then we stopped having unique identities. Like, the 2000s.
Yeah.
The 2000s are just trying to be more of the 90s.
Yeah.
And, like, there's some changes, but, like, there isn't a unified, or there doesn't seem to be a unified, like, culture of that decade.
Well, you can't say, oh, remember the 2000s, and rattle off a list of things that happened in the 2000s that are unique to that decade.
Yeah, like, the cultural touchstones aren't there.
Well, there's one.
Yeah.
I was about to say
there's the big one.
There's a pretty
that may
big
be part
one.
of it too, is that there's one big one that overpowers everything else.
And then led to a really shitty decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also hasten to note that a lot of the what I consider really stupid stuff from 90s is not around anymore, like slap bracelets.
They are absolutely still around.
Yeah.
Or pogs.
Also,
Pogs are also still around.
What?
Both
Yes.
of those things have
made a weird
had
comeback.
multiple weird resurgences.
I'm pretty sure Pogs are undergoing a resurgence right now.
No.
I made a comment on Twitter the other day about Pogs for a reason, because Pogs are coming back.
I have all of my old Pogs still.
Like, that is the weirdest thing to sell discs of cardboard with a horrible game built around them.
Yep. Yeah, all these things, they're still like, jelly bracelets. Yep, no, they're still,
Oh,
All
you
of
can
it.
still get jelly bracelets. I think they even brought back the weird jelly sandals.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. I've seen it with my own eyes.
Wow. Slap bracelets.
I didn't understand it, but I saw it.
Slap bracelets were a weird torture device.
Yes.
Those jelly shoes are a weird torture device.
But, like, during late elementary school, every girl I knew wore them.
I mean, I had them. They were so painful.
I had what I distinctly remember wearing was the Reebok shoes that had lights in the soles, so that when you stepped, they would like light up.
Oh yeah, those are definitely still a thing.
I had
see
Reebok
kids wearing them.
pumps. Those were a weird technology.
I feel like pumps started in the 80s, and
They
maybe
did.
that
Yeah,
explains
they
why they
did.
never came back.
All of this 90s stuff makes me feel so old.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess this game, like, it weirdly made me feel very old, but it also sort of, like, made me feel young again. Like, it brought me so directly and so accurately back to that time that it actually, instead of just making me go, oh man, I'm so old, remember all this stuff, it drew me in so much that it actually sort of made me feel like I was a teenager again.
I'm going to use one of those annoying industry buzzwords. This game was very, very immersive.
Per my previous
Yes.
comments about being immersive, what it has is incredible attention to detail.
Yes.
All it really needed, though, was a Magic the Gathering deck.
That would have actually been
Accurate.
It
Yep.
would have been.
Because
It
100%.
absolutely
in-
would have
in
been
high school-
100% accurate.
we were playing Magic the Gathering, like, unlimited and...
1994, 95, 96, yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Or
Like
you would have seen a note. The bit that I was surprised wasn't that you didn't see a Magic deck around, but that last bit between Sam and Daniel
Mm-hmm.
didn't mention that he had this weird card game that he's into. Because I feel like that would have like encapsulated
Yeah.
the whole thing. Because I can see
Yeah.
Sam not having a deck because it's not really her scene.
Well, but, like, I was absolutely in Sam's scene, and we were playing Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
not
it
have
was
been
that-
I would not have
Oh.
been surprised at all to have seen like a stack of opened up boosters in her locker next to those cigarettes.
I feel like we grew up in very different towns. There was
Yeah, like,
a
I
divide.
I was reading bad poetry in coffee houses, so...
Yeah, I was about to say, like, Magic the Gathering.
But I was also going clubbing, so...
That's fair.
I think when you grow up in a small town, like, maybe
There's a bit
the
more.
lines are different. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
like-
blending of lines.
I mean,
There's-
I completely identify with the character Sam, and I absolutely was playing Magic the Gathering in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was also playing Magic the Gathering in high school, but I also remember being one of the people who played Magic the Gathering in high school. The kids who wore flannels and listened to punk rock would make fun of you, and the people who are, already in, early high school were already getting perms and wearing dresses to school every day and like had perfected their makeup game already. They were making fun of the punk rock kids.
Well,
I mean,
like,
that's definitely a thing. I feel like, honestly, like looking at these characters, I feel like Magic would not have been Lonnie's thing, but I could totally see it being Sam's thing.
yeah.
I mean, especially with all of
The
the
video
science fiction
games and-
movies in
yeah.
the video on the VHS tapes
And the
video
comics.
games and the comics. Yeah.
She would have bought it at a comic shop, because that's like where you got it at first, was comic shops.
I go back to, I think if she hung out more with Daniel, she would. But like, who would she play with? Why would you pick up a game?
She would have done what I did and taught my friends that never would have played how to play.
Yeah.
And gotten
And
them
she
hooked.
would have seen someone playing it at the comic shop like I did, and
Yeah.
or seen another weird friend playing it, and having seen it at the comic shop.
I guess I'm just
And
thinking
would have
of,
gotten into the artwork first, because that's what got me first.
I'm just thinking of her as like she's moved into this new place and has no friends and doesn't know where anything is. Like, would I have picked up Magic in that scenario?
I mean, I feel like I don't know, like maybe not. I also kind of feel like she may have done one of the things that I did, which was like bought a couple packs because it looked interesting, even though I didn't even know what I was gonna do with it. I mean, I sort of
Yeah.
caught Magic secondhand through someone that I was dating, but
That's such a way of putting that.
it's
pretty accurate though.
But what caught me was like I was just flipping through the cards and it's like, oh, these look neat and the art is cool and it's kind of complicated and interesting. What is this? And like bought some just to kind of look through them, even without having ever played it or knowing whether I would like it or get a chance to play it.
You know how I get people into games right now? I kind of did that in high school with Magic and pretty much everything else. I got people hooked on World of Darkness. I got people hooked on Magic the Gathering.
I have the weirdest. It occurs to me that I have the weirdest like introduction to Magic the Gathering. Then, because I remember we had like, I don't even remember the circumstances, but some guest speaker came in and to our class in elementary school and talked about games, like playing games, and everybody got packs of Magic, like the whole class.
Wow.
That seems...
And it was... And we were all like, some people were like, well, I'm not going to do anything with this, and gave it to... Some people were into it, and other people were like, I'm not going to do anything with this. Or like, I can't have these. So
yeah,
here. And like, there was some, trading for like favors and snacks and so on until they settled down, but it was still like half of the class, like 10 or 11 of us, all picked it up at the same time.
That
sounds like a way to get a lot of parents. That sounds like a way to get a lot of parents furious at the school.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like
we were still in the satanic panic at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that like. I hadn't really thought about how weird that is until just now.
I picked it up at Boy Scout camp. Like another counselor who was from a troop in Oklahoma brought his cards with him. And introduced the rest of us to it, and then like we served as vectors to our various towns.
It was huge here.
My school.
Yeah, it was huge here. They couldn't keep it in stock for the longest time because everybody kept talking about this new game that this card game, and I mistakenly bought a starter deck thinking that was all I needed to have.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I caught it from the guy that I was dating, and the story is
you make it sound like a disease.
Well, it
is.
Totally is. But
Yay.
I went to his house, and he and his buddies were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and he really wanted me to play, and I didn't know quite how I felt about that. And let me tell you, sitting and watching other people play D&D will make you never want to play D&D. It's the most boring thing you've ever seen. And so while they were doing that, I was like, oh, what are these? These are cool looking. I'm going to look through these cards. And then I played Magic. And then eventually played D&D also, but Magic first.
Yeah, for the longest time I didn't actually play D&D. I played Marvel Heroes because we could disguise that as not D&D. Yeah. But I had to keep the dice at my house.
Oh yeah, because those crazy special dice
are
only used for evil games.
Wow, so I just sent a few messages back and forth and got an interesting tidbit. Apparently, there was a permission slip sent out to every single person in my class for this whole Magic thing. We had to get parents' permission, and my mom said my mom just says it's really funny because they had a But they had this whole thing where they're like, we would like to teach your kids about different types of mythology and different ways of different games that they may not have seen before and expand their minds. We will be using this and this. Here's a bunch of information about it.
We'll be using this game full of cards involving demons.
Demonic tutor.
Yes. Demonic tutor, demonic horde.
Yeah, my parents had to talk to somebody in our church before I was allowed to play Magic or Dungeons and Dragons.
My parents were more mad that A, I was spending tons of money on Magic, and
Yep.
B,
Yeah.
I was going over to boys' houses to play.
I didn't have that particular problem, but I definitely had the you're spending too much money on this.
I spent my lunch money on Magic cards. Most of my junior year, that's where my lunch money went.
Yeah, God, I think it was either my junior or senior year when the Dark came out, and we all drove over to the nearest big town 30 minutes away and bought the store out.
Yep,
Which was just, they had a box. They had a
that's
single
right when
box.
I got into it was right when the Dark came out. So I bought up the last few Legends packs they had, and then every week towards the end of the week I'd come in and buy a couple of packs of the Dark. Or maybe a pack of the Dark and a pack of the 3rd edition.
Well, it was super scarce for us, and we would go all over the place looking for anything. So if they had Legends, well, hell yeah, I'll buy Legends. If they had Antiquities, I'll buy Antiquities. But anyway, we are drastically off topic.
We're so far off topic.
I mean, we're still in
We
the
got
90s.
so
Yeah, we're in the right decade.
nostalgic that we just didn't
This
want
game
to leave
is-
the 90s.
This game is very pure 90s nostalgia.
It is. Needed more flannel, though.
I don't remember flannel in the 90s.
Oh, God, yes.
What?
Oh, what? I don't know where you are.
I don't know.
The
I associate flannel with hipsters now.
grunge.
No,
grunge had become a
No,
thing.
grunge and big leather belts and bicycle chains on wallets.
Oh God, the chains.
I had a chain wallet.
The chains and the blue jeans so big that you could fit your entire torso into one leg.
Yep. I had all that going on. Yeah, that was a thing. And it didn't matter if it was 90 degrees out. You're still wearing that flannel.
I also happen to like the 0451 reference.
What is that a reference to?
I didn't catch that one.
90s video games. For a while, Looking Glass Studios and a bunch of people who worked for Looking Glass Studios in various capacities and so on, the first code in almost every first-person game was 0451.
Oh wow, I never realized that.
It's
the first code in Deus Ex.
It's the first code in Deus Ex. It's the first code in System Shock.
Oh, wow.
That was lost on me.
It's the first code used in, I think, both BioShock and BioShock 2.
Yeah, apparently so.
I mean, it's
My
used
God, I've played
it's-
every single one of these games. How do I not realize this?
It's everywhere. I mean, it's to the point where, there was a point where I would just try that number combination first and then move on. But I liked the 0451.
Apparently Dishonored used it as well.
Yeah, well, same group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in games everywhere now. If
Yes, it did.
If you have a game that has a punch code that was made in the US, it probably has 0451 as a key to something somewhere in it.
So, do we have anything else we want to talk about this game before we wrap things up? Because this is a decent time to segue since we just talked about Dishonored.
I think we're all set.
So,
Can we go around and just get a final impression from? I mean, thumbs up, thumbs down. Would you recommend this game? Obviously, this game is hit me emotionally more than any other game I have ever played, and I think it's partially due to my particular circumstances, but I still would highly recommend it. I love it.
I love this game a whole bunch. I got it when it first came out, and I loved it. But I also really like the genre that gets dubbed walking simulators, and if you absolutely hate those with an utter passion and don't think they are worth your time,
You're wrong.
move on.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually going to get contentious here and be like, if you think walking simulators are not worth your time, you're wrong, and Gone Home is the proof. Even if you don't like any of the content of the game, like what I feel like this game, more than almost any other game I've ever played, with the possible exception of Mega Man X, deserves to have a continual place in game design study, because yes, it tells an interesting story and it has this interesting place, but it is also a brilliant reminder of why level design and little details are so important. And it's perfectly encapsulated. Like, it's perfectly encapsulated by just the placement of lights. And I don't care if you oppose everything that this game stands for from a content perspective. It's still genius level design and world building and attention to detail. And it's worth your time even if you bounce off the content and don't get anything from it. It's still brilliant.
So
easily game of the year 2013.
Honestly, like, I didn't think I would like this game because I like, if a game doesn't have a body count, I usually lose interest. But I feel like I imprinted upon this game largely because I grew up in this era. So everything in it I could relate to because it's all stuff that I knew intimately as a teenager. It's a really good game and I liked it, but I don't know if I would feel the same if it didn't have the strong I know this world feeling. Like, if it were set in another time period that I weren't intimately aware of, I don't know if I would feel the same way.
I can see that.
I absolutely loved it. 10 out of 10, all the thumbs up. Play this game. Really, play this game. And also, just to drive home just how solidly set in the 90s this is. I don't know how we never mentioned this. The two teenage girls made a zine and distributed it at school. And it is awesome.
So I totally made a zine for Street Fighter 2 codes and distributed it in the arcades. Yeah. Okay. All in all, though, like, I think we all agree it's a good game and you should play it.
It's really worth your time. It's worth your time. It's worth your time more than almost any other game.
Yeah.
It really does respect your time, too. Like, it's 3 hours long. I spent 3 hours in it. You might spend less, but every bit of that 3 hours is worth it. Like, there's no slow moments. Or there's no wasted moments.
Yeah. Yeah, once, like, I started playing, and within a few minutes, there was no question that I was going to play to completion, that afternoon.
By the time I finished the first bedroom, I was pretty much hooked. Like, I was in it for the duration. Okay, so, as is the tradition with the AggroChat Game Club, it rotates around, and since Grace was in the end of the rotation, and I have been in the beginning of the rotation, I believe, it is my pick for May, and I have had a change of heart, and we're going to be playing Dishonored, since we mentioned it earlier. Well, that's not the reason, but it's a really good... It's a much more actiony game, but it's a very intelligent actiony game. So I feel like we need to, like, before we dive into another, cerebral experience, we need to have a little bit more action.
And it's the game of making people be devoured by rats.
Well, so the interesting thing about it is like,
or it's not your choice.
It's the only stealth game I've ever managed to play through.
I have never actually beat this game. I am looking forward to it.
I'm frankly shocked that we've gotten this far, and I was not the one to put a stealth action game on the roster.
But anyway, so I would love to hear what people thought about Gone Home, and hopefully people will be interested in playing Dishonored with us over the coming month. And we will see you at the tail end of May for that show.
And let us know if you played Gone Home with us and what you thought.
Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show. I would apologize for us getting way off tangent, but if you've ever watched your show, you should know that's a thing. Anyway, hopefully you had a good night, and see you later. Goodbye!
Goodbye!
Goodbye.
Good night.
Goodbye.